What's up, my guys? What's up, my girls? AKA my dear and beloved Danny Flois. It's good to be with you one time for the 21 times. I'm your boy Danny Flo, your favorite vodcast teacher. I teach you things, a pronunciation that I stole from my lovely wife. Shout out to you, baby. So, I basically teach you by giving you, my guys and my girls, my philosophy, my philosophy of fitness, my philosophy of family, my philosophy of faith, which is that we should all be Catholic. And yes, I'm aware that I'm hella weird. In this episode, I'm gonna keep talking about whether an older girl should date a younger guy. And this is the third episode in the series. Go back and listen to the first episode, which was episode 25. The second part is episode 26, and now we're on the third part. But before I get into that, if you're watching your boy on YouTube, which is obvious if you're watching on YouTube, but it's not obvious because I also release this as a podcast, not just a video podcast. If you're watching me on YouTube, go ahead and hit the notification bell. That way you're notified whenever I upload a new video podcast, aka a vodcast. Cool. Let's get into it, my guys and my girls. This episode is the third part, and it's going to be about the parents. The parents are super important, especially for the younger party, which in this question that I'm trying to share my thoughts with you, my guys and my girls, is the guy. The guy is younger in the situation, which happens in real life. So I think independent of whether we're talking about an 18-year-old guy dating, a 19, 21, 29, 31, maybe even older than that, 39, something like that, or whether we're talking about a guy that's like in his mid-20s dating someone in their early 30s, mid-30s, late 30s, right, dating a girl that age. We have to take into consideration the parents, especially if the younger guy has a good relationship with his parents. If he doesn't, that's very unfortunate, but for the I guess for the episode, for the sake of the argument that I'm trying to make, or the reasoning, or the thoughts that I'm trying to share with you, my guys and my girls, the younger guy has a good relationship with his parents. So I'm actually going to use a movie as an example to kind of make my point, because what I'm ultimately going to say is, as a parent, who wants to have a good relationship with his son, I want the best for him, and I want to protect him. And I think if my son in the future brings home a girl that's older than him, and in episode 2 we talk about following the laws with regards to what's considered an adult legally. In the US it's 18, and then we talked about following all ethical rules, like in places of employment, or like if in universities and things like that. So definitely go listen to that episode so that you have that foundation. But let's say all of the laws and ethical principles are being followed. My son brings home his girlfriend, and she happens to be older. Now hopefully I'll raise my son right with good moral principles, but I don't know that about this woman that he's bringing. If she's 5 or 10 years older than him, I might wonder, my instinct is going to be to protect him, right, and wonder if this is a true connection, right, if they have the same philosophy of dating, if they themselves have different, if they have the same moral principles, if they have the same philosophy of faith, if it's more than just looks or a thrill or a number of different things. I think when you have a good relationship with your parents, like, your parents instinctively want to protect you. And I don't know this woman. I don't know if this woman she's old. She would be older than my son, so she would have lived much longer. Maybe she has kids. Maybe she's been through a marriage. Maybe she's divorced. These are all things that parents will need to consider, and these are things that hopefully a younger guy and an older girl that are dating and are serious about it they'll have to discuss that, because another thing that we'll get into in a later episode is like social stigmas and stuff like that, because I want to help you guys think critically, and things like this happen in real life. I think we would be I don't mean to offend anybody, but I think we'd be naive if we pretend that older girls don't date younger guys, and even older guys dating younger girls. And if I'm being honest, the older guys dating younger girls bothers me more than like pondering these questions of older girls dating younger guys. Maybe I tend to romanticize women as in they don't have, which is false, right? Like some older women have malicious intentions, and then some of them have good intentions. The same with older men, the same with just persons in general. So the movie that I'm going to, I guess, kind of use as my example to make a point, and spoiler alert, right? I tend to be really wordy, and I try to be as organized as I can, but I am kind of thinking on the spot. I don't want to ruin the movie for anyone if you haven't watched it. I had already watched it. I thought it was a good movie. Obviously, I don't agree with all the messages. It's really hard to find a movie where you agree with kind of like everything that's portrayed, but it's good because like in life, you don't agree with everything that you experience or with all of the different messages that we see throughout different medias like YouTube and stuff like that. So the movie's called Crazy Stupid Love. It's starring Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, and the premise of the movie is pretty much the main character, Steve Carell, the character that Steve Carell plays. And I rewatched it this weekend with my wife, like on Saturday night, the night before Mother's Day. Happy belated Mother's Day to all the beautiful mothers out there. So it's a movie about love. It's what they call a chick flick, a romance comedy. So basically, the main character that's played by Steve Carell, he's married and he gets cheated on, and he married his high school sweetheart, and she like confesses to him, and his reaction is to kind of just give up. He like throws himself out of a moving vehicle, and that's a little bit open into interpretation. I don't want to like get lost in that. But so basically, they end up getting a divorce, and he meets Ryan Gosling at a bar, and Steve Carell is just so focused on this bad thing, this tragic thing that happened to him, right? He married his high school sweetheart. They have 3 kids, and after all of these years of marriage, they're ending in a divorce, and she cheated on him with a coworker. And he just keeps talking and talking and talking about it very loudly, very audibly. And the character that Ryan Gosling plays, who's like a ladies' man, he's a promiscuous ladies' man. He sleeps around. He is like a pickup artist. He's very handsome, very charismatic, has a dynamic personality. He's charming. He's got swagger, right? And he's very just convincing, and so he feels bad for the character that Steve Carell plays. It's weird that I just watched the movie and I can't remember like the names of the characters, but so he helps Steve Carell become a ladies' man, right? To forget about what happened with him and his wife, to forget that she cheated on him with a coworker, to just move on, and I guess not be, because the character that Ryan Gosling plays views him as like pathetic, right? Views him as not a man, right? Because a man is able to convince women to give them what they want, right? That's the philosophy that they're portraying, and in the movie, which I don't agree with, but so I mean, even though and Steve Carell doesn't really agree with this message anyway, but he's just trying to like move on, and he's got like nothing better to do pretty much. And so they build a friendship, right? But what happens is, like, in parallel, we're getting to know the character that Emma Stone plays, and like I said, spoiler alerts. And the entire time it seemed like it was like, you know, when you watch this movie for the first time, it seems like it's just a story in like parallel, but you later find out that the story is intertwined. So Ryan Gosling ends up falling in love with the character that Emma Stone plays, and he stops being like a ladies' man for him. And then there's a part that like reveals that there's a part where Steve Carell finds out that Ryan Gosling is trying to date his daughter, right? And he like freaks out. He like forbids it. He says no, he's a womanizer. Like, I've seen him in action. He's like because so like Steve Carell, right, has seen how he objectifies women, Ryan Gosling, and then he kind of learned to objectify women from Ryan Gosling, but this is his like daughter, right? And so that kind of does have like a double standard. But there's this scene where Ryan Gosling goes and visits Steve Carell because it's like life is like falling apart. Obviously the character that Emma Stone plays is upset with him because she's like trying to forbid him from like dating the guy that she loves, you know, independent of his past, which is a little bit of a beautiful message, right? Like if a person has a rough past, then but he or she has genuinely changed, then, you know, you shouldn't hold that against him. And then he tried to get his wife back. That didn't work because he himself had been doing what Ryan Gosling was doing, and his wife had found out, even though she cheated on him, right? That doesn't justify what Steve Carell did in her mind, especially because like in her mind he kind of did it a little bit for like revenge. So it leads up to the scene that I think makes my point for me, why the parents should be what the parents think, and the parents maybe concern, or maybe like just their like thoughts and feeling and their perspective and their concerns should be taken into account if their younger son is dating this older woman, because of what Steve Carell says to Ryan Gosling. So, you know, Ryan Gosling tries to explain, like, I wasn't, you know, really looking for this. I love her, and I used to make fun of people like you. I thought that they were, you know, pathetic. I thought that they were fools for being in love, but now this has happened to me, and I didn't want it to happen. And so Steve Carell's response is like pretty profound. He's like, I understand that you love her, but I've seen too much, I know too much, and this is like my daughter. I had her when I was like 17, and I taught her how to ride a bike, and like he's basically giving him all the reasons why he like cares for her and loves her and is trying to protect her. Like, that's his baby, right? And even if he himself has like done damage to his own self and to his wife and to the women that he kind of objectified and like womanized by just like sleeping with them and using them to kind of like move on with his life, right? He still just paternally, right, just instinctively is trying to protect his daughter from that, because, you know, they had presumably they have a good relationship up until, you know, this happened in the movie. I do think that it's not really making, as I'm saying it out loud, I don't think I'm explaining it as well as I should, but hopefully that made some sense. Obviously, like, if I could make it more concise, more pithy, then I would, but even if I were to some people it's still not going to make sense. To some people it'll make some sense, and to some people it'll make all the sense in the world. So I think that is a good example of why, like, if you're an older girl interested in a younger guy, you have to take into consideration, and you're willing to follow all of the laws concerning what's considered legally an adult. I don't know why I'm always like burping in my IGTVs and my vodcast. I'm sorry, guys. It's a human thing. Don't act like y'all don't burp. I know that y'all burp. Excuse me again. Just I hope that didn't sound nasty. So definitely consider whether what you guys are gonna say, the parents, how you're gonna address their concerns, if they like reflexively are just trying to protect their son, and just remember like remember like that example that Steve Carell, like I had her when I was 17, and like I raised her, I like taught her how to like ride a bike. Like you're basically going to enter into a relationship with like a person that like means the world to somebody. And so I think in a future episode we'll kind of address like whether we're gonna address social stigmas in a future episode, and we're also gonna address like what if the older girl has like kids, like even young kids, or even like toddlers, but then you could also have like a kid that's like 10 or something like that. Technically, like what if you had your kid when you were 20, now you're 30, and then now your kid is 10 and you're interested in a guy that now is 20. So that's another thing that we have to think about. So I think the last thing that I'll say for this episode though is like, if you're an older girl but you don't have kids, right? Just imagine if you did have kids, and especially a son, and your son came home with an older girl. Like, how would that like make you feel? And would you want your thoughts taken into consideration, your questions, your feelings, your perspective, your concerns, just everything that you're feeling, that you would be feeling existentially, right? In the moment, would you want that taken serious? And I think the answer is yes. You would want to have an honest, open conversation with your son and this older girl. Like, okay, what's going on here? What is this leading to? Is this serious? How long has this been going on? Where did you guys meet? All of that stuff. Or if you do have a kid, I mean, you'll probably be able to maybe connect with this more. If you do have a kid, right, just imagine him older. If you have a young boy, right, imagine him older and he brings home an older girl. How would that make you feel? He's 18, maybe she's 25, 28, or maybe he's 25, 28 and she's 35, 38. How would that make you feel? So definitely take that into consideration. My mind is drawing blank at this point, and this is the third part in the series of whether an older girl should date a younger guy. So I guess if I think of anything else, I can mention it in a future video. So if you haven't listened to those other two podcasts, go back and listen to those, and going forward, look for addressing the social stigmas that this might come with. We need to think about that. We also need to think about whether the older girl has children of her own, and I think that's it so far. I mean, if I think of anything else, then I'll also make an episode about that, because the point is I have my own thoughts, and I think that my thoughts are right. Some of them might not be right, and if I'm presented with reasons to not think that, then I'll do my best to try to I guess let go of that. But the point is to like share my thoughts with you guys, that way you guys can be critical like thinkers, right? And like, let's say you're like a girl in your late 20s, early 30s, or whatever, and you're interested in a younger guy. I'm trying to help you like think this out. If you're a younger guy interested in an older girl, the same. Or we all know people that date, right? And we all know, and people kind of surprise us with who they choose to date, because we're not mind readers. And so if somebody that you care about, like if you know a girl that's that you care about, and she wants to date a young guy, and she asks you what you think about it, well, now you know kind of. Now I've made 3 episodes on things to consider, right? And I'm gonna make more on it because I think this is a cool question. It's a great question. It's a big question. There's a lot to consider. That there's a lot that is implied. Dating, I think, is really important because my philosophy of dating is it should lead to marriage. And whether a guy and a girl are the same age, or one is older, one is younger, vice versa, you should have the same philosophy of dating. Cool. Thanks for watching, my guys and my girls. Please like and share the link to my vodcast so that you can help me grow my channel. If you're watching and you aren't subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe and let me know in the comments how you found me and why you subscribe. If you're listening to your boy on Apple Podcasts, thanks for listening. Please share the link to my podcast so you can help me grow my listenership, and leave a review if you feel like doing something cool for your boy. The link to support the Dani Flow podcast, vodcast, financially is below. Please consider it if my vodcast is a cool thing in your life that's added value. If not, that's cool. Keep listening. The best thing that you can do for your boy is share the link to my vodcast with your bestie, your next bestie, your fam bam, and on your story on the gram if you feel like doing something cool for your boy. Thanks for putting up with me, my guys and my girls. I'm aware that I'm hella weird, but you like it. So let me know what you think. We're a fan of thinking here on the Dani Flow podcast. We like thinking here on the Dani Flow podcast. So please share your thoughts with your boy. Share all your thoughts with your boy, whatever they may be. And as always, my dear and beloved Dani Flowers, remember what venerable servant of God, Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen, taught us: your life is worth living. Love you, my guys and my girls. Bye.